The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Here we go on a Thursday. Whenever you're watching, hope you're having a fantastic time, be it morning, evening, night, middle of the night, whenever the case might be. We've got a monstrous show lined up on tap. Our own T. Scott Jones will join us from Banks & Jones. We're going to get into some breaking news from a legal perspective, and also we're going to discuss the NCAA, them approving the settlement, plus the Jaden Rashada suit, as Florida is in a lot of trouble as they are getting sued by Georgia's quarterback. Never thought I would say that, but there we go. Did Jeremy Pruitt get a raw deal after the settlement clause? We're going to discuss that as well. Cooper Mays, we count down the most important balls headed into summer camp. He is one. Tennessee, are they putting too much stock in Chaz Lanier? I know you want news. I thought I might have it. I don't. I still believe BYU was the play in order to get a little bit more money, and I'm standing by that based off what I've been told at this point. No new news, but the visit reportedly went well. But we start with this, and that is today's tough question. First, I will ask the one, the only, Caleb Calhoun. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for asking me how I was doing. I thought you were just going to go in and not even worry about the welfare of me, Dave.
I would never do that. That's not me. Portions of the program brought to you by Boundless Moving. From the 2-hour minimum to turnkey operations, they've got you covered. Boundless Moving. Check them out in East Tennessee. Just Google Boundless Moving or go to Charlotte, and you can move there as well. Boundless Moving. Let's get to today's tough question, and it's brought to you by our very good friend, Don Self, State Farm. I'll tell you more about him here in just a second. Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Caleb, I know your response to this, I think, but I'm going to give you first crack anyway. Is the SEC championship game dead in 5 years? Because we see Tennessee's baseball team, obviously, they don't care about the baseball the SEC baseball tournament in Hoover, and they shouldn't. It doesn't mean anything. It's getting to the NCAA tournament, the College World Series. Do you see the same thing happening with the SEC championship game within 5 years?
Before we get there, let's not forget Tennessee basketball straight up through their SEC tournament game when they had a number 1 overall seed on Friday. And I mean, just literally on purpose through that game. Go back and watch it, guys. I don't know why you think it's 5 years. I don't really think, I think it'll be this year. I think this year in football, the SEC championship game will have very little fanfare involved. I think you will see 2 teams playing where a first round bye is on the table, but one of them that is a significant underdog probably will say, why try to win this game when I can instead, basically here's what they'll be saying. Say Tennessee goes and they're playing Georgia in the SEC championship game. Say you're playing Georgia, Dave. Yeah. You're Tennessee. You say, I can try to win the SEC championship game against Georgia, which would get me an automatic bid into the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. Or I can throw this game, and then I have to win a home game against, I don't know, BYU or some group of 5 school in the first round of the college football playoff, and that's going to be what gets me into the quarterfinal. Why would I risk injury trying to beat Georgia in the SEC title game? I mean, that's where I'm at with it. Why would I risk injury when either beating Georgia or winning a home game against a group of 5 school gets me the same result into the quarterfinals?
Well, SC Scout guy says South Carolina never cared about the baseball tournament. Ray Tanner would start a kid that had never pitched in a game all year, game one. So that is apparently what they're doing. Football is a different sport, though. You can't go out there and halfway play football or you're going to get yourself hurt. So the reason this is a topic right off the top is because Caleb's won me over. I up until this morning thought the SEC championship game would hold all of its allure for years and years and years. But I'm now concerned. I'm really concerned. And I think that it's going to lose some of its allure, some of its luster within 2 or 3 years. Maybe not as quickly as Caleb thinks, but pretty darn quick. That to me is disappointing. Baseball and football are two different sports. So let me ask you this, Caleb, since you seem to have all the answers. I'm joking. How do you throw a football game? Because if you go out there and go halfway, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to get yourself hurt. You cannot go halfway. Answer that question brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers. The greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126. Excuse me. Let me do that again. 423-396-2126. Or go right down below, donself.net. Donself.net. All right. How do you throw a football game, Caleb? Is it just play the backups?
Well, yeah, on the message board, Derek Owen took the words out of my mouth. FSU bowl game model. You don't even have the starters fly with you to Atlanta or travel with you to Atlanta. You take all walk-ons, all backups, and use this as a chance to get your backups some valuable in-game action and say, we don't care. We're just not going to sit there and go all in. You're right. You can't halfway play a football game. Like basketball, I think Rick Barnes, let me be clear.
Hey, either Derek or Caleb won. Help me with the FSU bowl game model. So, did they not take any scholarship players?
Everybody opted out. Everybody opted out. And Mike Norvell didn't even play the main starters that were even there. He he basically hardly played anybody. They barely even practiced for that bowl game. They had a purpose. They on purpose wanted to show up ESPN and tank the Orange Bowl ratings, so they purposely got blown out. I'm dead serious. It was a way to show up and embarrass ESPN. It was actually very much, if you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but Greg Popovich was very angry at the NBA schedule one year. He had San Antonio play like 6 road games in 11 days, and their last game would be at Miami, which had like 4 games in 13 days. And it was Miami at LeBron. It was totally a setup for Miami to blow out San Antonio on national TV. It was a national TNT game, finals rematch. And Greg Popovich, the night of the game, was like, I'm resting all my starters. I'm not going to play anybody. And it was
one of the first times that this sort of became a thing, opting out, so to speak, of the NBA or college. It was first in the NBA with Kawhi Leonard. Now it's definitely in college. What about the pride factor? I know it sounds sappy, but I'm going to throw this at you. What about the pride factor of you're still Tennessee or whatever school, or South Carolina in your case, SC Scout guy, but you're still that school that you take pride in, and every time you get an opportunity to go out there and win a game, you should give it your best. What about the old sappy morality reasoning? You don't buy that at all?
You don't sacrifice the greater prize ever for that, okay? Ever. And just to give you an example, Dave, now you know how I feel about punting, right? You know I'm not a fan of punting. But within the context of the game, there are times you have to punt. When you punt, you're sacrificing a loss within the game, are you not? You're acknowledging I was not able to score on this drive. Here, I'm giving you the ball back.
Yes.
This is just a punt. The SEC championship game throwing, it's just a punt. It's a punt in the marathon. That's all it is. If you lose the SEC title game. And here's where Tennessee is going to be in a worst case. Actually, this is a great thing I thought of recently, Dave. Tennessee is going to be in a worse situation than most teams in the SEC for this. You know why? Because Tennessee doesn't play. Tennessee's last 2 weeks of November are consistently going to see them play their worst teams on their schedule. It always has been, right? Vanderbilt and Kentucky. So yes. Most teams have a really big game the last week in November. Typically, if it's the last week in November, they already know whether or not they're going to the playoff. So they'll know whether or not they should try really hard in that big game. But Tennessee's not going to be in that situation ever. They're always going to have to try to win their big regular season games because those games are in October. And you know this. You don't really know how the postseason, you don't really know what your postseason standing is going to be at the end of the year. So you can't take off in some big game in October. Okay. And you're not going to take off Vanderbilt because you can't afford to lose to Vanderbilt because then you get knocked out of the playoff anyway because you lost to Vanderbilt. So Tennessee's never going to be able to throw a regular season game. But I think this is going to stretch 2 regular season games. You're going to see teams throw regular season games the last week of the year before conference title games. It's going to get ugly.
Maybe I end up agreeing with you there too, but I'm going to stop short of there, okay? I agree with you that the SEC championship game could be hurt. I'm not ready to go with the regular season now. Now, what am I going to ask you to do, Caleb, since you've thought this for a while? Please hit like and subscribe, by the way. We don't have very many likes yet. We'd appreciate if you'd hit that. But, Caleb, you've been ahead of the curve on this, and I'll give you credit. I'm going to ask you to be ahead of the curve again in 60 seconds. Tell me how the SEC can make their championship game still relevant in a playoff world. The show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Caleb, fix it. How do you fix? I'm making you the czar of college football. How do you fix it?
You can make the conference title games potential. There's a few ways to fix it. I don't want to say only conference champions go play in the playoff because then you devalue all non-conference games. But you could significantly reduce the number of wild card teams that get in to where, okay, maybe only 2 wild card teams get in, not 6 or 7 or 8 at-large teams. So that way, if you lose your conference title game, you're in real danger of not making it to the playoff at that point.
Okay. I think I have a solution too that would help. And they're not going to do it, but it would be a formula. So that way you know about where you are and you know you want to improve your standing either for a bye or a home game. So you have motivation to go out there and improve that. If a formulaic that I could look at and say, if I go out there and risk my starters, I can prove myself to a home playoff game. I'm probably going to do that. But if I'm risking my starters and some guy in the math department tells me that I've got a 10% chance of getting into that top 4 that gets a bye, then I'm not going to do it. But I think it largely depends on year to year. But I will agree with you. I will come towards the middle. There's going to be less emphasis on the SEC championship game in 5 years. Now, somebody said, hey, SEC football, somebody said momentarily ago that both teams will do this. What happens if both teams do that? That would be an aberration if both teams are trying to throw the SEC championship game and they're playing a bunch of backups and you're sitting there watching that game that was once, I believe, the greatest spectacle in American sports. And yes, I'm including the Indy 500. I'm including the Super Bowl. I believe the SEC championship game, because of heritage, is that special. To me, Caleb, that gives you an idea where I'm coming from. We've only known each other a couple of years. So this hurts me. This makes me angry. This makes me want to change things. And I'm a playoff guy. So I'm a little bit conflicted.
So I'm with you on that. And let me say this, guys. I've said this always about the SEC title. If Conference Championship Saturday that, ESPN and College Football has branded now, that's such a lie. It's SEC Championship Saturday. Nobody really cares about the other conference championship games. They don't have the same spectacle the SEC does. Even the Big Ten. Okay, it's the SEC. Funny enough, Dave, in the 90s when the Big 12 started, the Big 12 title games were always way more exciting as games than the SEC title games. But the SEC title games were way bigger draws because of the spectacle around it. So I'm with you on this. And this is why I hate it as much as you do. And I want it to matter. I want to address this issue. People say conference title winners are going to get a bye. Well, the issue is, why play for the bye Why play hard for the bye when the SEC title game, resting the SEC title game could be your bye, and then you just have to play a game before the quarterfinals, I guess a wild card round game, and it's usually going to be at home against a much lower team. So the bye is not really worth it. That's what I'm getting at, guys. Mathematically, the bye is not worth the effort you're going to put in the SEC title game when you'll have a much easier path to that same round, which is the quarterfinals, which is where the bye puts you, if you play the first round game against a lower level team. The concept of the bye at that point is overrated. I'm with you, Dave. The best way to do it, there's two ways to do it, actually. There's actually two ways I could maybe get on board. One, the 14-team play, this is going to be a crazy one. Make the playoff go to 14 teams and set up the bracket the way you set up the SEC basketball tournament. So if you win the SEC championship, you don't just get, if you lose, you have to play the first round. But if you win, you get a double bye. Not a single bye, a double bye.
Okay. But then you're getting, I don't like that because you're getting somebody so incredibly healthy and fresh with 2 weeks in football. I think that's a greater advantage.
That puts a lot of emphasis, but you want to put emphasis on the conference championship game. You want the advantage of winning the conference championship game. Make it mean something.
Well, I do, but I don't want to go that far. In other words, we're both having trouble finding a solution that placates me.
Okay, so there's a double bye. The other one, and you're right, and I don't want to do this, but this is the only other option. People want to.
I got to ask one question for the message board when you're done. Hurry.
Okay. People want to cling to the tradition of the bowl games. You got to chuck the bowl games, and the teams that get buys get home field advantage after their bye.
Don't hate it. Don't hate it. I can't really argue with you. Golly, I don't like the double bye either, SC Scout guy. John Major says if UT goes 11-1 losing to Georgia and then loses to Georgia again in the conference championship game, again, he said again twice, do they get in? Well, let me ask you that because that's basically what it comes down to. That's what the playoff should be able to take into account is the fact that you're playing in the best conference. So I believe they would if they lost to Georgia twice. I think you're in there. And I think you're actually probably around 5 or 6 because I think Georgia will be around 1 or 2. So let me ask you your thoughts on that. Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Stop by and tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you and say, hey, Bo. Hey, Bo. How are you? All right, Caleb.
This is a flaw that was actually in last year's Big Ten that could happen this year. So your John Major's scenario, Tennessee plays Georgia November the 16th. You want to know what the final
poster, not the ex-coach, but anyway.
Yes. You want to know what the final 2 regular season games are for Tennessee after Georgia, Dave?
Lay it on me.
UTEP and Vanderbilt. So, and this is the real question. You know what Georgia's final 2 postseason games are after Tennessee? Or final 2 regular season games are after Tennessee?
Lay it on me.
UMass and Georgia Tech. There is a 1,000% chance that Tennessee and Georgia are both winning their final 2 regular season games, right? There's not even a debate.
Agreed.
Okay. What happens if they're both undefeated playing each other November the 16th? They know, say the SEC, based on the SEC formatting, they know that they're both going to the SEC championship game anyway. They're both locked in for the playoff. Why even try to win that game?
You're going to start throwing games in September, Caleb.
I'm saying this is the flaw of the playoff.
Who cares about UT Chattanooga? Go ahead, lose to them.
That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying and this is the big difference, Dave, between, so the NFL, the way they set it up, because people try to bring up the NFL, every game you play, you're trying to get home field advantage because that home field means a lot, right? In the NFL, that being in your, so you don't get that in college after the first round. Now people will say basketball, you're still trying to win in regular season basketball, and it's the NCAA tournament. But the difference is, as you know, basketball, you're not risking as much injury trying to win a basketball game. You are risking a lot every time you try to win a big football game. Are you not?
Yes. One injury and you're done. That's why I don't think you can halfway it. I think you've got to do the complete substitution of playing the other guys. We got to move on. Let's talk some hoops. Tennessee's still waiting on Chaz Lanier, and it's feeling a little bit desperate while he's improving his standing in the college basketball community. BYU now reportedly in the mix. I think that's a leverage play. Good for him. I don't blame him. I think he wants more money. Caleb, you have a very strong take on Chaz Lanier, and that is Tennessee is too desperate for him. Am I verbalizing that correctly?
I think Tennessee, and I believe this because of what I've heard about the program themselves. They've held 3 scholarship spots open, and Rick Barnes hasn't tried to fill them. They put everything on trying to get Chaz Lanier. They put all of their stock on Chaz Lanier.
I was told they think there will be a couple of guys fall like dominoes if they get Chaz too. So they may be depending on Chaz even more than when you wrote that than you thought.
Yes. This is a gigantic mistake, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, Chaz Lanier, does Chaz Lanier add value to Tennessee? Absolutely. He brings more depth, and he also hit over 3 threes a game and was 44% from 3 last year. So, Dave, in college basketball, you can never have too many reliable shooters, right? Like, the more three-point shooters you have, the more you're going to take. But let me break down what Tennessee has right now, okay, going into next year. They have Zakai Ziegler at point. Let's just talk about their backcourt for a minute. Zakai Ziegler at point guard. They have Jordan Gainey coming back, and they have Cameron Carr, who by all accounts, Cameron Carr was so good, and the coaches were so in love with him. That's what forced Freddie DeLeon and DJ Jefferson into the transfer portal. So you have a 3-man rotation for the 2 guard spots. The wings, they have Darlington Dubar, who is their next Dalton Connect, and then they have Jemai Meshack, and Meshack can move into the guard spot. Then in the post, they have Igor Milicic, Philos Opara, which is a better down low post game than Jonas Adu and Toby Awaka, plus JP Estrella's developed. So they've already got an 8-man rotation right now that could easily be just as good as last year, if not better, because Igor Milicic can stretch the floor in a way Adu nor Awaka could. And also, Opara would never get worked by Zach Edey the way Adu was worked by Zach Edey under the basket last year. Okay, so that's where so already they're in a better position than last year. The only thing that they needed to make them better was to assure themselves that they could have a couple of extra players for depth. Chaz Lanier could be that. But if he's playing you like this, why spend all the time on him rather than just trying to find another couple of transfers that could fill those depth roles? And this is where I met with it. Chaz Lanier, and I want to bring this up. Chaz Lanier averaged, you want to know what he averaged before last year, Dave?
I would love to know what he averaged before last year because he's a come out of nowhere guy. I know somebody that covers preps in high school, and he's from Innsworth, and they didn't know who he was.
There you go. So at North Florida, he averaged 1.7 points, 4.5 points, and 4.7 points his first 3 years there. Now, he broke out and averaged 19.7 points this past year. Great. Lovely. That's awesome. Kudos to him. Very proud of him. I think
probably hit a growth spurt. I'd be willing to bet he hit a growth spurt.
That might be true. I can't confirm that for sure, but he's only 6'4", so what did he grow from? Is the question.
Well, when I say growth spurt, I hit a late growth spurt from like 18 to 20 in there, so I bet he put on a couple of inches after high school.
Okay, that might be true. And you're right. But that's very possible. But all I'm saying is that, okay, he averaged 19.7 points per game last year, shot 44% from 3. He could end up being very valuable. He could end up being a huge pickup for Tennessee, and he could end up being a go-to scorer. What if he and Darlington Dubar are just like a great combo? And by the way, if he is more reflective of last year, then he's the perfect fit for Rick Barnes, who, as you know, develops players when they arrive. So I'm saying this up front. You guys are all going to call me hypocritical. If he commits to Tennessee, I'm still going to say he's a big pickup. I'm still going to say he's a great pickup for Tennessee. What I'm saying is, he was not worth putting all their eggs in a basket, given the fact that they already have a very stout roster, and the big thing they needed to focus on was depth. Because if they don't get him, they're now scrambling to fill a couple of scholarship spots, and they put a lot of eggs into the Chaz Lanier basket, and I didn't think he was worth the risk-reward, honestly. I didn't think he was worth risking other transfers you could have picked up to get him, because of how stacked your roster already is, the depth you need, and the question surrounding whether or not he can maintain what he did last year.
All right, new poll question on board. And it has to do with Chaz Lanier. Here is the question. If Vols don't land Chaz, then that's fine. They're good. Big loss, a lot of stock in him. What do you say? I think I know. Probably the latter.
That's hot.
No, I actually, it's a former. That's fine. They're good. My problem is, they're good if they don't land him. But that's why they shouldn't have put so much stock in him. They should have put more stock in him just to feel like they're depth.
I don't like the starting five without him.
I do. You don't.
I think they need one more outside shooter. You like this team better than I do without him. I don't. The thing that made them different, Caleb, the thing that made them different is they could manufacture points because of Dalton Connect. That's the bottom line. They could. And when they needed it, he was there. Maybe not as much as he could have been, but most of the time he was there. 99% of the time. One of the best, maybe the best players since I've been covering Tennessee in basketball for one season.
I think
if you don't have him, you're still going to go in those long scoreless streaks, and you're certainly not going to be an Elite 8 team. They don't make the Sweet 16 without Dalton Connect.
See, this is where me and you break. I agree they don't make it without Dalton Connect, but I also think players like Dalton Connect are going to be a dime a dozen for Rick Barnes in the future because of this era of the transfer portal. And I think Darling Stone Dubar is the next Dalton Connect. I think he is a clone of Dalton Connect. And so I think they literally are just replacing him this year. I could be wrong, but I think they're just replacing Dalton Connect. So they have that.
I think Chaz is the replacement.
No, Darling Stone Dubar is the replacement. Darling Stone Dubar is the wing that can move over to the 4. You're also missing the other part. Tennessee can go back to Rick Barnes, and this is something they haven't had in a while. They can go back to the old way Rick Barnes played, where Rick Barnes liked 2 bigs on the court, and the reason they can play that way is one of those bigs, Igor Milicic, he's a sharpshooter. So they can stretch the court with Milicic, Dubar, and either Gainey or Carr or Meshack, and then Ziegler running the point, and then they'll have Felix Opara to clean it up under the basket, and they can play 4 around the perimeter. They can play 4 out, 1 in the motion offense. And honestly, I think that'll be fine. The only thing they needed more than anything was depth, because they needed it. And this is where look, if they get Chaz Lanier, amazing. Congratulations. You got Chaz Lanier. But they this is like the NBA team that puts a lot of stock on winning the lottery to get the draft pick they want. And then they don't win the lottery. And then they're like, oh no.
May I throw this at you? Because you think Milicic is going to be fantastic as a stretch 4, right? He's going to be.
I think he's going to be the best stretch 4 in Tennessee history.
He's saying a lot. I mean, who is it now?
Well, stretch 4. Hey, Ron Slay could play at the top of the key, but I didn't consider him a stretch 4.
I love Ron, but he ain't a stretch 4. I mean, a stretch 4 gets out of the wing a little bit.
Yeah, there's no stretch 4 like.
Travis says Caleb's spot on, but I'm going the other way for just a second here, guys. When's the last time Rick Barnes had a great stretch 4?
Rick Barnes' last great stretch 4. I mean, there are guys that could stretch the floor at the 4, but guys that didn't play on the perimeter.
He's still playing in the NBA. A good
Grant Williams wasn't a stretch 4.
Yes, he was. He could go outside and shoot.
But no, there's a difference between being able to go outside and shoot and then the 4 that plays on the perimeter now. Like, we're talking about the Dirk Nowitzki era, okay, where the big man plays from the
and he could play the power forward or center on the other side defensively. That makes him a power forward to me.
He played on the block though most of the time. Grant Williams was Ron Slay was as much of a stretch 4 as Grant Williams. They played mostly on the block, but they could play at the top of the key. No, Igor Milicic is actually going to play from the perimeter.
They have never had a guy, to my knowledge, at the 4 that is going to play on the perimeter and open up spacing. I can't think of one. Now, Ron Slay, those threes you're talking about, that was most oftentimes as a trailer on a fast break, correct?
Or when teams were playing zone because they tried to contain Ron under the basket, so they would set screens for him at the top of the key, and Ron Slay could just nail those threes from the top of the key. And by the way, Ron Slay will tell you the story. Georgia tried that on him one time, and he scouted it, and he figured it out. Big indictment against Buzz Peterson that Buzz Peterson didn't figure it out. Ron Slay called the strategy for himself.
Yes. 4 downs right now, brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Here we go.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
There we go. And it's pretty simple. You stop by Dynasty Pools and Spas in Athens, check out what they have, and you can pick up a free Celebrate 98 book by me, or you can pick up a t-shirt. It's all right there. Just stop by and say Off the Hook Sports sent you. Coop, what do we need to do? By the way, new Vol report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning up now. Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
Coop here. First down.
First down, Coop. And here we go. We're changing gears completely. Jeremy Pruitt, did he get a raw deal? Your thoughts, first down. Should the show cause end? Now, in case you haven't heard, the NCAA, according to sources, has agreed to back pay all of this cash. Explain more about it, but I'm wondering if Jeremy Pruitt's sitting somewhere saying, what happened to me, Caleb?
Yeah, the NCAA has agreed to, and we're going to talk about this later on the show. They have agreed to a settlement in a lawsuit on NIL basically violating players' rights by not allowing them to cash in on their own name, image, and likeness. They're going to pay $2.7 billion out to former athletes who could have made NIL money. How that gets dispersed, I don't know. We don't know the details. We'll talk about that later. And then also schools are going to be allowed to directly pay $20 million to their athletes going forward. That's the rumors of the early part of the settlement. Jeremy Pruitt got a 6-year show cause from the NCAA for directly paying players, and I doubt it was $20 million. And
sorry, buddy. Those are the rules. He deserves it. Slam him. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think
rules.
No, but that's so unfair. Okay, for instance, like in our nation right now, a lot of people are in prison because they smoked weed. Weed is now legal in a lot of these places. I think those people's conviction should be overturned. I know it was illegal when they did it, but I'm thinking like, okay, it never should have been a rule in the first place. They should be let out of prison. Now, I'm sorry, in this situation, I think you could.
They broke the law, Caleb.
Yeah, but you can negotiate in certain instances of saying, okay, you broke a law, but it was a bad law. So even though you broke it and you knew it, we'll still have a punishment, but we won't have it as severe. So maybe make the deal of, rather than 6 years, maybe make it 2 or 3.
Well, it should have never been as long as it was. 6. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous anyway. Like they got Donnie Tyndall with the 10. But let's be honest, that's the University of Tennessee throwing some of their guys that they don't want around anymore that have caused trouble. They want them out of there. And Tennessee turns their back on them quickly. We talk about how they self-report. Yes, they self-report, but by self-reporting, they're self-reporting on the guys that are in trouble. So Tennessee essentially turns their back on these guys, but they've cheated, so it's okay, and I don't blame them.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, 4 downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Second down is this, and it has to do with Jeremy Pruitt. Does he deserve more credit for the talent that he brought in? I'll go ahead and tell you, I think this is a resounding yes.
That's hot.
But he had to pay to get it. So Peyton says,
they're like, that is total bullshit.
He paid to get it. Maybe evaluated. He paid to get it. He doesn't deserve more credit.
Wait, no. Everybody he paid to get transferred out of the program before Josh Heupel took over. Everybody that Jeremy Pruitt paid transferred out of the program, and Tennessee nudged them out and forced them out before Josh Heupel took over. And Jeremy Pruitt and Josh Heupel was still left with a collection of really talented players, the most notable of whom was Hendon Hooker. Okay? Hendon Hooker started, Josh Heupel wanted to start Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker, but Josh Heupel, say what you want, Hendon Hooker fell out of the sky into his lap. That doesn't mean he didn't do a good job with Hooker. Hooker didn't do this at Virginia Tech, what he did at Tennessee. Cedric Tillman. Jeremy Pruitt found Cedric Tillman out of Las Vegas as a 2-star. Nobody was looking at him. Jeremy Pruitt went to Vegas to get him. Okay? That was a big steal of a pickup and a receiver that he got. Jalen Wright. Jeremy Pruitt saw his speed before anybody else did. Yes, the Eric Grays and the Wanye Morrises and the Henry Totos, I'm sure all of these guys were paid, but all these guys, like the key players left the program. Okay, so we're talking about a lot of guys that Jeremy Pruitt got. Javonte Spraggins, the best interior run blocker in the SEC. Jeremy Pruitt found him out of Illinois. Nowhere. Nobody knew anything about this kid, and Jeremy Pruitt went and got him. Dave, the guy you say is possibly generational, Elijah Simmons, he was only a 3-star, and Jeremy Pruitt found him out of I think it was Pearl Cone in Nashville. Okay, there is a lot of talent Jeremy Pruitt identified. By the way, he paid the major guys that all the schools were going for, but he also found a lot of undervalued guys at Tennessee that went to Tennessee that Josh Heupel, yes, did the good job coaching up, but I'm just going to say it, and y'all can call me crazy. Jeremy Pruitt is the best talent evaluator. He's the best talent evaluator Tennessee's ever had in recruiting.
No, go ahead. Say it one more time, Caleb.
He is the best talent evaluator Tennessee's ever had in recruiting. There's not a close second.
Well, are we counting assistants or head coaches?
Head coaches.
Okay. Well, I could name 6 assistants, but I'll give you.
I would make Jeremy Pruitt my general manager tomorrow if I were an NFL coach.
Golly, I probably would too. But the next question is not that.
All SEC center Cooper Mays. Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Would you hire him as a defensive coordinator? I'm going to answer first. Hell no, because I think that I think that, yes, he's a good talent evaluator and probably a good motivator. But I believe that was Nick Saban's defense. So I wouldn't hire him for that reason, not because. But I would hire him as an NFL GM. I think that's pretty astute.
Oh, yeah, I think I would have hired him as a defensive coordinator when he was hired. I think schematically he's way behind the curve now, and he got exposed when he was at Tennessee towards the end. Because here's the thing that Pruitt believes. I remember Pruitt saying this. He said that he basically said his defensive backs don't need to be covering the quick slants. He says it's the job of the defensive tackles to cloud the quarterback's vision to stop the quick slants from happening. Dave, in this era of quick releases in college football, you need your linebackers and defensive backs to be able to cover the flats and the zone area and this over the middle, right? You can't rely on the defensive tackles to shield their vision.
And he's thinking of the defensive tackles that Alabama had that created such a push almost by accident. I mean, those guys were so talented over the years that, I mean, my goodness. I mean,
if you have John Henderson, okay, you don't need to cover the middle of the field. You know, John Henderson's going to cover it for you up front, but like, you can't rely on above average defensive tackles to do that.
No. Coop, what now?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
I appreciate that, Coop. 4th down is make a prediction as to where Jeremy Pruitt ends up and when. 4 downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. All you have to do is stop by their showroom in Athens. They'll deliver to you. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off any spa. And also, if you just stop by and say hello, take a look at the showroom, pick up a free Celebrate 98 book or an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt. 1 minute, and then we'll predict where Jeremy Pruitt actually ends up. You know, the best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready, because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
What becomes of Jeremy Pruitt 5 years from now? Where is he?
Oh, Dave, you're going to love it. I'm about to tell you.
I'm ready. It's replacing Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, perhaps?
No. Jeremy Pruitt is headed to Florida. Lane Kiffin is going to get the head coaching job at Florida in a year. And he's going to bide his time. And the second he gets the chance, he's going to name Jeremy Pruitt his defensive coordinator, because he's going to want Jeremy Pruitt to help him identify talent in Florida.
Damn, that's good. Okay, I like that one. I can't do any better than that. That makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. But you and I are assuming, when will the show calls will be over next year, won't it? Or the year after?
No, he still got. I mean, the show calls began from when he was fired, so we're talking. He can't get back.
He didn't get time served, so to speak.
He still can't get back in until 2027.
Then I'm going to disagree with you slightly, even though it's a great idea, because I don't think you could just kind of have him in purgatory. Because he can't be. They're going to put restrictions on him.
Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. Lane Kiffin is going to he's going to be in Gainesville, and he's going to give IMG Academy a call. He's going to give some school in Orlando a call, and be like, hey, would you guys hire this Jeremy Pruitt just for a couple years as a head coach real quick, just to, help identify some Florida talent. And Lane Kiffin's going to use this way. I'm telling you. And here's another possibility. I'll give you another one.
Dylan says, I'm going to vomit. And I agree, because the two guys with very questionable backgrounds are going to go to Florida and win a national championship. Those two guys together could probably win a national championship.
I mean, they almost did 2016 when they were at Alabama, offensive and defensive coordinators at Alabama together in 2016. Lane Kiffin and Jeremy Pruitt. So they know each other well. Here's another possibility. Jeremy Pruitt and Brian Daboll did win a national championship together in 2017 when Pruitt was Alabama's defensive coordinator and Daboll was Alabama's offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll is now the head coach at the Giants. Now, Joe Judge did hire Jeremy Pruitt as a scout for a year when he was coach of the Giants, and then Joe Judge was fired, Jeremy Pruitt was let go, and all of that. I think Daboll may bring Pruitt back on as a scout. And Dave, I'm going to be honest, if he does, I think Jeremy Pruitt could rise through the ranks to an NFL GM. Now, there's only one flaw in Pruitt being an NFL GM.
Wait a second. I'm just going to tell you, and I don't want this to sound mean, for my dealings with him, there's a lot of things as an NFL GM. There's a lot of people you have to deal with. I don't know that he's a people person that would be great in that role. Maybe like the guy under the GM that does all the talent evaluation. I don't think he's
general manager or assistant.
Yeah, I just don't think he's GM worthy from being around him. I hate to sound like a jack.
Well, I'm going to say I agree with you on that. And the biggest reason, maybe he'll be an assistant GM and that's his peak role, because the other part of being an NFL GM, you have to do math because you have to understand how to do contracts. Like, that's kind of a big deal, right? You got to understand math. And Jeremy Pruitt, does he strike you as a guy who knows math at all?
No. Yeah. He definitely does not. Oh, we're about to hit a new record for midday weekday viewers at one time. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd love to do that. If you're new to the program, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're a part of it, because we're the show that has Jimmy Himes, John Adams. We have Spencer Riley. We have Fred White. More and more and more coming, as we're excited to announce some pretty big news coming up here before too long. So we want you to be sure and subscribe and be a part of the program. On the flip side, General Nealon says Kiffin loses 4 this year and is forced to remain in Oxford. I wonder if that's worse. I wonder if Lane Kiffin would rather just lose 6 and get fired as opposed to just hang around Oxford. Because this just in, he doesn't like Oxford, but you didn't hear that from me. 2 minutes with Calhoun and Dave Hooker.
He likes it better than Auburn.
That's
when he was Auburn last year.
I understand, but you're not picking New York City and LA.
Oxford's one of the top 3 SEC towns.
You're not picking New York City and LA, though. That's more Kiffy style. Stay tuned.
All-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
You would say, what the H is Dave Hooker thinking, saying that a center is one of the most important players on the team. But if you know these Tennessee Vols, you know how important Cooper Mays is. Our countdown continues. Caleb, Cooper Mays, where does he fall as the most important ball headed into the summer before the fall? All.
Oh my God, Les Miles used to start every press conference with all. He would he'd be like, all? Like, are you saying welcome all? Like, sorry, one of the stupidest human beings. But, Cooper Mays is the second most important player for Tennessee football.
More than James Pierce, more than Omari Thomas, more than any defensive back, more than all these guys, but obviously not more important than Nico. But everybody else?
Yes. And go back and watch the Florida game last year for anybody that wonders what I'm talking about. Because the Florida game last year, Tennessee didn't have Cooper Mays. They straight up lost because of that.
Agreed.
He is, and here's why, and importance involves 2 things. It involves talent, and James Pierce is the guy. If there's one guy that has generational talent on this roster, it's James Pierce, by far. But James Pierce, Dave, how many great edge rushers are on the system right now? Right? There's a lot of good, like if James Pierce goes down, you don't think Tennessee's going to struggle at edge rusher.
No, they're good there still. Use great. Yes. I don't really have a great, but very good.
If Cooper Mays goes down, he's been there for 4 years, and Josh Heupel still hasn't found a backup center for him.
I was told by a source Bison Lang is coming on, but not ready. I was told by a good source this week. So will he be ready by the fall? At this point, probably not, because you've worked on a lot of your technique and stuff that you can do in the spring. Now it's about getting bigger and stronger and just adding mass for the most part, except for the guys that need to lose weight. But anyway, he's not ready. I was told he wasn't ready. I was told a lot of the interior linemen need another year. So, this is an aside, but Cooper Mays has had health issues, as you mentioned. Tennessee's key to the whole season, guys, may be that Cooper and the gang stay healthy. If we're having a conversation at the end of the year where, wow, Tennessee like 2022, they didn't catch the injury bug. Things broke well for them, unlike last year where they had injuries and they were a factor. You're talking about a championship-worthy team. 1 or 2 injuries on the offensive line, and I think you could be talking about a 3 or 4 loss team if it's for an extended period of time.
Oh, I agree. And here's the thing with the Heupel offense, and I want to be clear about something. It's not that it's complex. You and I have talked about this, Dave. I mean, I think me and you could figure it out in 2 weeks if we were there. It's not a hard offense to figure out, but here's what's the problem. You play so fast that you have to, it becomes hard to make it second nature, because even the little things you do have to think about, you can't think about them because you're moving so fast. You have to instinctually be able to do it, right? You have to instinctually know what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And the center is a huge part of that, guys. The center is as much a part of directing traffic in that offense as the quarterback is. I mean, who was it that talked to us about it? Just something as simple as knowing who to give the ball to, knowing where to line up, where the ref's going to spot the ball when you're moving in the no huddle. That's a huge part of the offensive line. And last year, and Cooper Mays knows that. We can say this: Cooper Mays is probably the smartest offensive lineman in the SEC. I mean, he's definitely got to be number one in my book.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you he's the smartest player that I've ever covered.
There you go. There you go. He is...
And how many hundreds of players would there be? Maybe thousands.
You're right. That's a good question.
My recruiting days. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody that just struck me as incredibly intelligent from the get, and that was him. And it's never waned. He's never like, I've never thought, hey, he's just not with it today or something. I think he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and players I've ever met. And I've had an opportunity to be around quite a few smart guys. Now, the first that you're going to say as a Tennessee person is Peyton. Well, I started covering Tennessee in 98. Now, smarter than Dobbs? That's interesting.
That's a tough one.
I mean, I think he's incredibly street smart and intelligent. And if you did the IQ, they're about the same. Does he want to go to school as much as Dobbs and be an aerospace engineer? Probably not. Not that he's lazy at all, just that that's not his desire. So, but is he as smart as Dobbs? I think he's as smart as anybody I've covered. I'm just going to put him in that realm of probably 10, 12 people that if I sat down and made a list, he's one of the smartest guys I've covered. I don't know their actual IQ, Caleb. I can't tell you for sure.
No, I agree. And also, let's call Peyton what it is. Peyton was an extremely smart football. From what I've heard, he wasn't that smart in a lot of other places, though. Homeboy can't even, doesn't even know how to lay out clothes properly in his closet. I
didn't know that. I didn't know that. I think Peyton is one of the smarter guys, though, that's been around.
But he applied all of that intelligence to knowing football, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like he stored so much of football with all that intelligence. He didn't store much else, which is kind of funny. He was that obsessive with it. I agree with you on Cooper. Dave, I wanted to pose this question because this is something that's interesting. One of the most annoying things, certain coaches used to say this. By the way, I'm not knocking. Philip Fulmer never said this. For those who say I say certain coaches, Fulmer never said this, but there's a lot of coaches that did. That would say the center is the most important lineman because he touches the ball every play. And that used to drive me crazy because I'm like, no, I'd rather have an elite left tackle than an elite center all day. However, in Josh Heupel's system,
not in this offense.
Isn't it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, not in this offense. The ball's getting out too quick.
Yeah, the center's the most important player in this offense on the line, isn't he?
What you're worried about with this offense is making sure you're in the right line call, which Cooper does. You're making sure you never, ever have pressure in the A gap or pretty much the B gap 90% of the time, which is, for those that don't know, that's between the center and the guard and the tackle, the A and the B. So that's what his job is. And when he's been in the game, have you ever seen somebody come free up the middle?
Never.
I haven't. And that's the one thing it's obvious that tackles aren't as important in Josh Heupel's system, or he wouldn't be able to flop one from left to right every single year, or he would care more about they're in the right. They're in the right, I believe, because they want a clear line of sight to make that first read, and they're going to throw to the right more often than not. But I would argue in this offense, you're getting on board with that. I think that in this offense, center's more important than left tackle.
Yeah, much more important, I think. Again, if it's the old school power run offense, in the 90s that Tennessee ran, where, the offensive linemen are taught to maintain their blocks and just win one-on-one matchups, then the left tackle is more important, right? Because the left tackle has to absolutely wreck those SEC ends. And this one, most of the time, the quarterback's trying to get the ball out before the end can even get to them, right? Before the edge rusher can even get near them. I mean, we're talking about a quick release. This is very similar. It's actually, this is crazy, I'm saying this. The role of the center in this offense is kind of like the role of the center in the Colts offense with Peyton Manning back in the day. Remember, you didn't need Jeff Saturday to be an elite blocker, and you didn't need elite tackles. You needed Jeff Saturday to understand assignment football because you knew How didn't Peyton Manning always get the ball out within 2.5 seconds when he snapped the ball? It seemed like and that's what you need with this. Cooper Mays is crucial to that offense. So I agree. The center is more important than the tackles, and also just for run blocking. And by the way, guys, you want to bring this up? I was very critical of Hendon Hooker in 2021 because I said he held onto the ball too long, trying to make plays, and took too many sacks. And his number of sacks collapsed in 2022. A lot of people, myself included, for a while attributed that to the fact that Hendon Hooker did a much better job just getting rid of the football. I think most of it, though, was that Cooper Mays was healthy in 2022. And actually that made it a lot easier for Hendon Hooker to get the ball out quickly. And I've kind of come around to that. Moving Darnell Wright to right tackle, you can maybe say had a thing. But what do you think was bigger, Dave? Moving Darnell Wright to right tackle or Cooper Mays being healthy in 2022?
Oh, definitely Cooper Mays. I don't even think it's close. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off at Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. It is right below. Caleb, the fact that Tennessee would have to reach a little bit for their interior offensive linemen specifically that aren't quite ready based off what I've been told. We got to get out of here because I want to break down a couple of different things as far as NCAA issues, but how disconcerting is that?
That's a huge concern. And I'm starting to wonder, is it because these guards can't play or because there's so much more thinking involved with the interior offensive line in the system that there's a lot more you have to pick up? I think that seems like it's the hard thing to evaluate with talent in the system.
Travis said Cooper's smarter than Caleb, and everybody agrees he won that segment. So
nobody's smarter than me. That's not possible.
No, it just can't. It can't happen. 2 minutes, and we're going to visit with T. Scott Jones. Is Florida about to get sued? Is Billy Napier about to pay out of his own pocket to Jaden Rashada for lying to him? We'll discuss that with T. Scott Jones of Banks & Jones right after this. Hang tight with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. back to Dave Hooker.
Let's get him in right now because he's in a brief recess. Nice enough to join us. T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones. How are you, sir?
I tell you what, just down here at the Knox County Courthouse playing to win and, hoping like a blind squirrel to find a few nuts.
Oh, you found quite a few. Now, tell us before, I want to get into this Jaden Rashada lawsuit and also the back pay that the NCAA, which is in the billions, is going to have to pay to former athletes. But first, tell us how Banks and Jones is different from perhaps different attorneys that are out there.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate the opportunity, Dave, to explain that. I mean, we're actually the sort of last men and women standing that are trial lawyers. We're down here on a day in, day out basis. I make an average of 41 court appearances a week with the 26 folks that I've got working for me. And I mean, we're here for our clients. I guess you can tell a lot, when your lawyer doesn't wear a tie, it's nothing wrong with dressing down, but that's sort of indicative of the fact that they're not down here, so to be, slugging in the trenches. So we are trial lawyers. We pride ourselves on that. We'll do what's necessary to get you the result.
I got a buddy who's a lawyer in another city, and he will do everything he can to get out of trial. That is not Banks and Jones. They will take care of you. No question about it. Okay, well, let's get rolling into this Jaden Rashada suit.
You there?
First, yes. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? We had T. Scott. Let's see if we can bring him back right there. Let's see if I'm going to bring him down, bring him back up. Can you hear me now? I think we can.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, Caleb, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, let's see. I tell you what, I don't think you can hear me. Let's reconnect this deal, and then we'll get into that Jaden Rashada suit. But what did you make of the fact that Jaden Rashada didn't just sue the university, he sued Billy Napier specifically?
Well, that's why I came with the.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of technical difficulty.
It happens.
Down here at the courthouse.
It happens. You're in a recess now, so we appreciate the time. That's pretty awesome of you. Okay, so what do you make of this Jaden Rashada suit, and in particular, the decision to sue individuals like Florida coach Billy Napier instead of the university as a whole? What statement is he trying to make? What is he trying to prove?
Well, I think, obviously there's a concern that, when you give somebody your word or you promise them something, that there's a consequence for failing to honor that promise. So, as far as singling out Billy Napier and some of the other individuals, I don't know who promised what. We've seen the allegations in the lawsuit, and those have been summarized. And then we've seen a statement by effectively university personnel and defense personnel that they don't comment on pending litigation. But if the facts as propagated by the plaintiff are deemed to be true, I mean, when you mess with a kid's life and they've got a 9-point whatever deal with the U, so to speak, Miami, and, you're sort of hell-bent for leather to get them to go to the University of Florida, I think that, there's a consequence associated with that. You say, hey, I'm going to pay you $13.5 million. It's sort of that sort of Brave New World gunfighter type. I mean, I think that young man's got a right to rely upon it. I mean, that's $4 million. And, I don't know. I don't know what was promised and what was said. But, when promises are made, there are consequences for failing to honor them.
T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones. I'm from the South. A verbal contract, a handshake, that's enough for me. And I know you come from the same sort of upbringing. But does that actually hold up in court? If Billy Napier only shook his hand, didn't sign anything, and said, we're going to give you X amount, would that hold up in court?
Well, it really just depends upon the extent of it. I mean, we've all seen, I think, in our recent Tennessee history, the quote unquote letter of intent. How far did it go? I mean, I can't imagine that it was just verbal discussions. I'd say there were some emails and some other things that went back and forth. I mean, these kids, and I call them kids, I get they're all adults, but, when you are having generation changing money offered, the kid had an attorney. And so he's, speaking with family members and being induced to eschew one contract and say, I'm not going to go to the University of Miami, but instead I'm going to go to Florida. making decisions based upon that. I mean, a lot of it's really just going to depend upon what the proof that eventually comes out. I mean, as we see, I mean, it is a lot on allegations. Now we'll see how much is fact.
So, T. Scott Jones, building off of that a little bit, I wanted to ask, is there a difference in something like this, say a verbal agreement that maybe went too far, that could be a violation that Jaden Rashada could sue for? Doesn't that open up doors for other type of violations? For instance, we know in recruiting, coaches for 40 years now, probably longer, have promised a player, if you commit to me, I'll start you next year, or I'll play you at this position. And then they break that promise and then say, no, we're going to play you at this position instead, or we're not going to start you. I mean, if Jaden Rashada's lawsuit against Billy Napier goes forward, doesn't that open up the door for players to sue a university or to sue a coach on behalf of, this coach broke a promise to me about playing time or the position I'm going to play when I get to school?
Caleb, I think that's a good point, but I think what we're talking about is apples and oranges. I mean, when we're saying, hey, you're going to play if you are the one that has the ability to start, is one thing, as opposed to when you start negotiating with this NIL deals. I mean, it's so new and evolving. There's going to have to be, whether or not we want rules in place or not, there's going to have to be some rules in place so that we don't have these kids. I mean, they're youngsters, and just like we saw in the NCAA lawsuit, and the reason that we saw that, they've got a finite line there as far as their productivity. I mean, I think I said the last time that we were there, Bum Phillips, I was always an Oilers fan back in the 70s, and, Bum referred to the NFL as not for long. I mean, these guys got a finite window, and ladies, that they can actually play a particular sport at a level that will allow them to, participate at these Division I schools. So I guess it all depends upon what was said, as opposed to, hey, you're going to start, come here, you're the next latest, greatest thing. I mean, look at Arch Manning. I mean, he's down there, pickled at Texas, and, the whole speculation is Arch going to stay down there, or is and play second fiddle, or is Arch going to go somewhere where he can start? I mean, it's really going to be interesting what happens this fall with regards to our brothers and sisters down there in Texas now that they're a member of the SEC. So I don't know.
Good stuff, Caleb.
Yes. So adding to that, I brought up a conspiracy, and I just want to know your thoughts on this real quick, because theoretically, it technically was against NCAA rules when Billy Napier allegedly promised him $1 million signing bonus if he signed with Florida. Now, I know in light of the recent NIL lawsuits, this could change. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I just want to ask, do you think Florida could be behind this lawsuit because they want to fire Billy Napier for cause? Could they fire Billy Napier for cause over this?
That's kind of some deep state stuff, but I mean, I don't know. Billy Napier's doing a pretty good job at instrumenting his own firing. So I don't know. I think Billy may be following the Bum Phillips thing, not for long in the SEC, but there are a lot of other programs available. I'm sure that he'd be a good Division II or junior college coach.
Sure,
Dave, 1 second. But where I was at was,
I mean, that was kind of harsh, but I am a Tennessee fan.
Well, what I meant though was, I think, does Florida want a legal reason to fire him where they don't have to pay out his contract?
Yes.
Well, I mean, we saw Jeremy Pruitt part ways with the University of Tennessee, albeit not exactly similar situations, but making that kind of allegorical argument with regards to maybe Florida is behind it. I mean, I don't know. It is interesting times as they evolve in this whole NIL situation.
I just think it was the guy in a collective going, he made you that promise. Go after him. I think they dropped that little hint. I don't know that after it, like Caleb used, was the word I would use, or behind it, but I think there was something there. T. Scott Jones join us now with Banks and Jones. You can follow them on Twitter. Just tweeted them out. Tennessee's trial attorney. They go to trial for you, and that's not the case with other personal injury attorneys, especially. So then we have the other topic at hand that I wanted you to weigh in on, and that is the lawsuit apparently is close to being settled between former players and the NCAA, and it looks like $2.7 billion with a B dollars will be paid to former athletes over the next decade.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting how that's apportioned out. I mean, I think it was inevitable. I mean, I think the NCAA stayed at the table way too long. You know, when this first came about, I think they could have mitigated it, worked out something in the NIL, but, you know, they were so used to being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and by God, what the NCAA says goes. And obviously the good folks from Tennessee and some of the other states that joined in, sort of, as we say with the dogs in the South, broke a dog from sucking eggs. So that being said, you know, it's interesting. I mean, the NCAA lost a lot of teeth with regards to that. And then you look at that, it's not only that 2.7 billion with a B, but also other payments that they're going to make on an annual basis as far as to achieve goals associated with this. And I think, you know, the lawsuit, when we looked at that lawsuit to begin with, part of the court's reasoning was what sort of I talked about with Jaden Rashada, was the fact that they've only got a finite window in which, you know, they can play ball. And, you know, it's interesting. I mean, and then you look back, and I guess I look at all these different sports. I mean, look at Ted Williams. I mean, Ted Williams took 2 leaves of absence, World War II and the Korean War, as a pilot, and think about where his stats would have been otherwise. Well, you know, not everybody's Ted Williams, but that being said, if you've got a finite window and you can pay 4 years of college ball and you're looking at $9 million, I mean, you better jump on it. I mean, $9 million, you know, in a working lifetime, that's life changing.
Yeah, so I want to get to they're going to pay out $2.7 billion, and reportedly the conferences and schools have agreed to where every school is given like a $20 million amount that they can give to players directly now. That's going to be the reported agreement. My question on that is, with the payouts to the athletes and with this $20 million, where does Title IX come into this? Because I mean, I'm assuming
I was going to key on that. I was like, you know, what are we going to do? Because the balance between athletics and the fact, you know, I mean, where does it come down to? I mean, is there going to be parity that if you're a Division I athlete in whatever sport, let's say that you're a field hockey player, you get the same amount as a quarterback in Division I football? I mean, you know, where is the line drawn there? So, you know, I'm not disparaging field hockey or advocating football, but I'm just saying that, you know, it's going to be interesting with regards how that also plays into the Title IX, because I think you're going to see litigation if there's not some sort of parity there, saying that effectively it's discriminating against, for lack of a better term, non-money making sport athletes.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like Pandora's box. I mean, you know, NIL came to, be, and then here come all of these questions. I mean, you know, we're going to see a lot of litigation in the future relative to it. And I don't know. I mean, do I think that they ought to get paid to play ball? Yeah. But I mean, you know, where's the limit going to be? I mean, you go back and you look at salaries historically, NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball, and it's not that many years ago that somebody got their first $1 million a year contract, right? And so when you start talking $9 million, okay, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, Jaden, you got $9.5 million. Well, Tommy over here from wherever you're from, we're going to pay you 10, and then it's going to be 10.5, and then it's going to be 15. I mean, you know, where is the limit? I mean, it is, I guess the sky is the limit. It could be astronomically expensive.
So, T. Scott Jones, going forward with that, I just wanted to ask you a broader, I guess, almost constitutional question on this. If 2 pieces of federal legislation, or state legislation for that matter, because it could be within a state too, are passed, that sometime down the road end up contradicting each other, does it then fall on the courts to decide which legislation takes precedent? Because in this, like, Title IX blatantly contradicts the Antitrust Act, doesn't it? And so,
I'm not going to go that far out on a ledge with regards to that. But that being said, I think that there are some inconsistencies. Isn't that the lawyer term where we obfuscate? There are some inconsistencies that are going to end up having to be settled by a court of law relative to these situations. I don't see any other means to deal with it. And, what do we do with all this money that's going to be flowing into the university? I mean, that's a lot of money, guys.
The Jaden Rashada case is very public, but I guarantee you there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 or a dozen or more that of cases similar to this. Do you think other potential lawsuits are just kind of waiting to see what happens with Rashada that might be out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of going to be one of those situations. It's almost going to be like an apportionment among this $2.7 billion. I mean, and I'm not taking away anything from it, but we've seen all those commercials about Camp Lejeune water, and there's been settlement funds authorized by Congress, and it's going to be paid out. Well, how is this $2.7 billion going to be paid out amongst all of the institutions? I mean, you realize there's going to have to be infrastructure put in place where we're going to evaluate Johnny or Jane or whomever was, a candidate to receive that money and how much they should receive. Well, obviously, if you're Johnny or Jane's lawyer, they are the best thing in the world. I mean, everything in a bag of chips. But then, where is sort of the objective evaluation of how much is everything worth? I mean, where do we come into that? I mean, again, is the $2.7 billion going to be set up in a trust fund and there's going to be a claim procedure where folks make a claim against it? Or how do you go about willy-nilly paying it out? I mean, where does it come from? I mean, who decides who is worth what?
So,
well, my guess is, sorry to interrupt, Caleb. My guess is they'll probably spend about $500 million to put together a committee to examine all the different possibilities, and they'll spend their first $500 million there.
Well, I tell you what, I'm willing to do it for a compromise $499 million. He's got. I mean, I will continue to sponsor the show, and I will soldier on through. Albeit, I honestly, my law practice may have to be wrapped up, but for $409, that would be life changing for me. So,
life changing for me as well.
I just God did not bless me with the ability to throw or catch a football, but my verbosity knows no bounds.
I like it.
So rather than go through Congress, then, so you think it's possible that the courts could maybe find a way to carve out certain, I guess, antitrust exemptions for the NCAA to say, okay, you have to abide by these, but okay, we'll give you a little bit of leeway to not have to abide by these parts of the antitrust law because otherwise you just can't operate. Do you think that's how this ends up?
I don't know. I mean, it's clearly not going to be just decided by a lower level court. It's going to go to, obviously, whatever particular federal circuit gets the appeal from where this litigation starts. And then, perhaps we see it in a couple of 3 years in the United States Supreme Court. I mean, it's got enough far reaching implications that they're not going to want, say the Ninth Circuit making one decision and the Sixth Circuit making another decision. So I can almost see the U.S. Supreme Court reaching down and saying, okay, let's grab the bull by the horn and let's sort of solve this problem, because I think that's certainly a possibility and out there on the horizon. I mean, it's going to be interesting to kind of monitor how all this sorts out. And you almost kind of wonder, now, are we going to see a solicitation of all of these athletes, kind of echoing what Dave said of, hey, were you a college athlete during the past X number of years? Did you receive any compensation? Obviously, the answer is no. Contact us and allow us to file the claim. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting. But you guys see that's a real possibility, right?
Yeah, and we're not just talking about football. We're talking about, if I'm a volleyball player, I can say, well, you sold some volleyball stuff, and I was, wow, what a mess.
It is. I mean, it is. It's a brave new world out there. So, I mean, I think we're going to see more court intervention and more, figuring all of this out. And then I think we're going to see NIL cooperatives get very, very careful about how they make offers to athletes in order to induce them to come to the schools. I.e., they're going to put qualifiers and escape clauses and everything else on it because, you know, even if ultimately Billy Napier and the rest of the litigants are successful in defending Jaden Rashada's lawsuit, it's still going to cost them a dump truck load of money to defend it. So, I mean, there's nothing cheap in the litigation area.
He is T. Scott Jones, Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Other lawyers want to settle when it comes to personal injury and criminal defense. Banks and Jones play to win. Thank you, counselor. I know you have to get back to court. We greatly appreciate the time.
I appreciate it. Take care, guys. See you, Caleb. See you, Dave. Bye-bye.
Have you thought about that, Caleb? Have you thought about that? If I'm a volleyball player or a soccer player, you can't prove that you sold more Lady Vol memorabilia because of the basketball team, which is true, than me. So why don't I get as much? Who's going to value that? Why don't I get as much as, why doesn't Bobby Sue, who played soccer during the same time as Candace Parker, get the same chunk that Candace Parker gets? You know that's absurd, but
that's going to be the toughest question with all of this. How do you determine who's going to get the money and who's owed the most money? It is so tricky, but they figured it out with the NFL. I mean, you know, with the concussion lawsuit, let's be honest, there were players that suffered way more medical damage than, you know, than other players because of the lying to them on the concussions. And somehow they figured out how to pay out all that money. I tell you where it could have been real dicey. I don't know why they settled. Most people will agree that if, you know, it's funny, we just had him on and T. Scott Jones doesn't settle. He plays to win in court. And I'd have gone all the way if I were this lawsuit, because if they had stayed fighting and refused to settle, you're looking at a $4 billion payout from the NCAA at that point. Why not go for all $4 billion?
And a ton of new viewers on board today for whatever reason. So please hit the like button. We haven't had very many likes. We would appreciate that. And just want to tell you, whether it's T. Scott Jones or somebody mentioned Sports Treasures on the message board, our advertisers mean everything to us. And I will promise you that we either use them or if we needed their services, we would and will. That's what that means. So that's why we appreciate T. Scott Jones more than you know. Also Sports Treasures. And how about we tell you a little something about Medicare? Misty, your older ones might be close to that Medicare age. Well, how about for no cost, Medicare Misty in 40 states can take care of you. So I don't care where you are, supporting East Tennessean, thanks to Medicare Misty that can take care of your Medicare needs. No cost. She charges nothing for that.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Go ahead and reach out no matter where you are, and Medicare Misty will take care of you. This day in Tennessee sports history. Do we want to do that now, Caleb?
Yeah, it's a very uneventful day in Tennessee sports history, but I'd like to send out a happy birthday.
Way to sell it.
Well, I'd like to send a happy birthday out to, I think, one of the more underrated players, in Tennessee football history, and his name is...
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you just... Don't tell me yet. Tease it. 2 minutes this day in Tennessee sports history. A happy birthday to one of Caleb's favorite players, maybe? 2 minutes off the Oak Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
This day in Tennessee sports history brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, the Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Rick's race to 8. A little tease coming up soon as we have achieved the 5,000 mark in subscribers. We're going to get to 8. Lickety split, and that will give you an opportunity to win some pretty fantastic stuff. But this day in Tennessee sports history, what do you got for me, Caleb?
Just a happy birthday to Kendall Vickers. And for those who don't remember, Kendall Vickers signed for Tennessee as a weak side defensive end at 6'3", 230 pounds. And he was too immobile. He was seen as a bit of a tweener, not quick enough for defensive end, and played under very poor coaching, but actually developed his body into a pretty solid defensive tackle by the end at Tennessee, and then became an undrafted free agent and has actually been in the NFL since 2018, was with the Steelers, the Titans, the Raiders, the Bills.
Really?
The Saints. Yeah. Yeah. He's with the Saints right now. He signed with the Saints right now. He is Kendall Vickers has signed with the Saints. He's actually just he's kind of, he is a great lesson. Vickers. He's a great lesson for NFL players for aspiring NFL players who aren't going to be starters or aren't going to be seen as or have massive weaknesses. Where if you maximize what you can do, you may not be a starter ever or a regular rotational player, but you could develop a career in the NFL. And if you've been in the NFL with a team at some point since 2018, that's 7 years of NFL money. That's at that point some pretty good generational wealth, isn't it? Even if it's a minimum.
Well, it's even more than that, because if you make it to 5 years, you get the pension forever. So when you turn 45, you get a check. So I want to say it's like 50 to 75% of your base pay or whatever it is at the time. So you're good to go once you hit 45. So that's huge. I'll admit I'm stunned, but kudos to Mr. Vickers.
Yeah, I love those players like that aren't necessarily going to. That see the value of just signing with NFL teams and getting everyone to a roster. You know what I mean? That understand the smarts of that. I've always respected a guy like that.
Totally agree. We want you, if you can share the Hooker's Corner link, we would greatly appreciate that, Caleb, as we want to share with you our big prize that we're going to be giving away the end of next week. It's our May prize. You can also read about Tennessee's long history with Pacific players, and I share a story that I told Caleb about Albert Kowina and the whole spitting incident. You'll want to read about that story. It's, I thought, Caleb, pretty darn interesting and insightful, and how I think the Vols, if they wanted to recruit all Pacific players, they could do that, be it Polynesian or Micronesian. You see now Tennessee isn't done recruiting in Oklahoma. That was yesterday. A lot of recruiting coverage. Plus, you get an opportunity to win one fantastic prize. Every week, we'll give away an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt. But thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures, we'll be giving away a grand prize. And the May grand prize, as you can see, is a Tony Vitello autographed baseball. So hit like and subscribe, and you have to be subscribed to win. But we can go ahead and tell you that right now you have to be a paid member of Hooker's Corner to be a part. So there's not a ton of competition. You got a pretty good chance of winning something pretty cool. And we're also giving away other prizes as well. But none of this would be possible if it wasn't for our friends at Sports Treasures. Sports Treasures carries over 5 million sports treasures. Yeah, that's a lot of sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia with daily updates. Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN, joined by a very special guest. Zach Hare joins us from Sports Treasures. He's a reporter on the roam down in Hoover, Alabama. Zach, how are you, sir?
Doing well. How about you guys?
I'm well. You know baseball. For those that don't know, Zach spent some time around Tennessee's athletic department, so he knows the baseball program really well. And I don't want to say that you're more of a baseball guy than anything else, but you definitely are a baseball guy. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Is Tennessee throwing this tournament?
Yesterday, probably. I think they were trying to get a lot of their guys innings. Like I said, I follow the baseball team for pretty regularly, and to my knowledge, I'm not sure if J.J. Garcia has pitched this year until yesterday. I know a lot of other guys coming in. It was good to get, like you said, talked about yesterday, see A.J. Russell get back out there. That would be a big plus. It's always good to get who was your Friday night guy coming into the season back for the postseason when they've been hurt. But yeah, definitely treated it as a bullpen game. And I think this morning session here in Hoover today will be interesting because, all 4 seeds lost yesterday, top 4 seeds lost yesterday because they all kind of did what Tennessee did and pitched more of a bullpen game to get some guys some innings and rest their starters. And then today, I think last I looked, the LSU-Kentucky game was a pretty close game, so they may be treating these more of a Friday night. We may get some better pitching matchups, especially this morning.
Let's hope so.
Sorry?
I said let's hope so, Zach. I'm sorry, Caleb.
Zach, just wanted to ask you that. So, I look at different sports on when you should rest and when not, because I always wonder, like baseball, you should be in rhythm. Football, you want to rest because every time you play a football game, you risk injury, and it's just such a mental, physical tear on your body. Is pitching, not every position in baseball, but is pitching kind of the equivalent of playing a football game because it's such a tear on you that just the rest by itself is valuable?
Yeah, definitely makes it, that's not a normal motion for your arm. So being able to do that and get some rest, obviously we want Tennessee to win, but if they were to lose today and Drew Beam gets over a week off before he has to pitch again next weekend in regionals, wouldn't really be a bad thing, especially as much as he's pitched for Tennessee over 3 years. It would be kind of nice, because outside of Beam, he's your only true established starter. I mean, you've had a very similar weekend rotation the last several weekends, but outside of him, you kind of point to Xander on Sunday. Seacrest, it's kind of a starter, but, the last few Fridays you've had an opener and then had Causey come in to finish it. So it would be, I think, Vitello yesterday was really hoping one of those guys would pop, maybe get a couple innings out of him. Then going into regionals, you'd feel, okay, here's our 6th or 7th arm we can have. But, to be able to get a rest for some of those guys like Beam and Aaron Combs and, Kirby Cannell's pitched a lot this year. He pitched yesterday. To get some rest for them going into regionals may help. But then again, it's a rhythm sport, so you don't know what will happen if you do miss, if we were to lose today and then not play again until next Friday, what's it going to do to your guys rhythm-wise? Kind of like in the NFL, like Peyton used to say, he really likes sitting out week 17 because he felt like got his rhythm off with his receivers.
Zach, great stuff. The 2 most talked about defensive backs that I've ever covered, and I've covered more recruiting than I care to admit, would be Eric Berry and a guy named Boo Carter. Some people have heard of him on the message board, and he'll be at your place on Saturday. That's pretty awesome.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, yeah. We had him out. What was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So he was good. Yeah. We got Zakai coming in this Saturday.
Oh, excuse me. I misspoke. Zakai, I completely messed that up, Zach. I'm sorry. Zakai Ziegler, a fan favorite, isn't your place on Saturday. Can you give us more about it?
Yep. So like I said, we'll have him in on Saturday, 11 to 1. So it's kind of early. We will open up like normal at 10. I expect there to be a line when I get there, probably at 8:30 or 9 o'clock to actually open up and start getting set up. But we are, like I said, also turning towards, like I mentioned the other day, good chance we will sell out. So if you are interested, I would reach out to us either on Facebook at Sports Treasures, Instagram at Sports Treasures TN, or give the shop a call, 865-688-2273, to go ahead and get your name on that list for tickets. Like I said, good chance we could sell out, so don't wait till the last second and try to get in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys do a great job of putting that all together. And there have been quite a few this year with John Henderson and Brew McCoy. And it's just what you guys are doing is awesome, man. And I'm sure that if somebody wants some Boo Carter autograph memorabilia,
we have some left over. They reach out to us. Yeah, we hoarded up a few because, like I said, I think he could be something special at UT. And like I was talking to him, I said, all it takes is running the kickoff or a punt back against Florida or Alabama or Georgia, and they'll be lined up Monday morning wanting his autograph.
That's right. Zach, buddy, I appreciate you. Have a very safe trip, and thank you for all you do, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.
He is the man. Zach Ayer with Sports Treasures. Over 5 million Sports Treasures in North Knoxville. Just drop in and look around. It's phenomenal. Go on Facebook, follow them, Sports Treasures TN. They send out daily update. It's just phenomenal. Whether it's Tennessee memorabilia that's autographed that you want or something else, Sports Treasures, Sports Treasures, Sports Treasures. And again, sign up. The message, the link is right there in the message board. You can win that Tony Vitello baseball. We'll be giving away an Off the Hook Sports t-shirt tomorrow. And anybody that signs up before Memorial Day as a way to salute those that have fallen, we want to make sure they get prizes as well. We appreciate you. And for Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Let's see if we can bring Caleb back up. There he is. This has been a presentation